Thank you very much to everyone, and thank you for inviting me. I'm here in behalf of the Share family community, and so this is the good occasion to meet you in person and to present this initiative. The Share-VDE specifically, but we will speak about the Share family, is a library-driven community, and this is an important thing that I want to underline, because also speaking with people during the coffee break, and also seeing the previous presentation, my impression is that the mood of this conference, but of this kind of work, is the cooperation between institutions, between companies, between people. So this is very important. Share-VDE the beginning of Share-VDE was in 2016, and it started as a research and development work, and the scope was exactly to facilitate libraries in this hard, exciting, but hard transition from mark-based cataloging to linked data. Now I prefer to say from mark-based cataloging to entity modeling, and so linked data. This expanded over time from the pilot project to the Share-VDE and the Share family of initiatives, and it became an initiative in production. What Share-VDE does, of course, conversion of original data in linked open data, adopting mainly BibFrame as main ontology, but adding other ontologies when needed. Of course, data describing library resources are connected in a union catalog and can be searched as an authoritative source. This is an important thing, as an authoritative source. Data come from bibliographic, data are bibliographic and authority, and of course they are enriched with a lot of data coming from different sources. Data are published in a user and professional web platform, and the platform become time by time an environment where people can work. So starting from publication, we arrived to something different. Briefly, who collaborate to this kind of initiative? The initiative is developed and supported by a lot of different libraries with the joint effort of the Share-VDE Advisory Council and different working groups I will present after, with the support of Casalini Libri and @Cult, and above all the vision of linked data for production initiative with the special endorsement of Stanford University, but input and the active participation come from a lot of different libraries. Okay, so coming back to the concept of a collaborative community can really produce a gravitational wave of energy that expand and meets other community with other energy to share. This is the DNA of this initiative. So nothing can be done alone in this interesting area. Is very exciting, but is absolutely important to have the cooperation and the collaboration and skills of a lot of different institutions and people. And here is just a brief list of institutions that are part of the Share-VDE initiative as a full member, but we also have a lot of different institutions that gave their help in understand the different topics, in work on them, and so a library can choose a different level of participation in this kind of initiative. So, as I said before, the connection is very important. The liaison with other communities is very important. And here, and in the next slides, you can see some of these institutions that the initiative is meeting or that has already met. So this is just a brief summary. And of course, the library community, the engagement of library community is very important. Also in the previous presentation, we spoke about the importance to collaborate, and with OCLC, for example, we are working, for example, on how to define a common shape in sharing data, because also in case different institutions use the same data model, for example, BibFrame, each project can have something special. So how to share this kind of linked open data, maintaining a common shape, a common model, and so other kind of institutions with which we are working. Of course, Library of Congress, that is also part as full member of the initiative, but also IFLA and other communities. And of course, the same kind of network and collaboration is present, was realized with the World Wide Web, because we know that in this kind of project, nothing is local, but a lot of value comes from external communities such as ISNI, Wikidata, IIIF, and so on. So this is the DNA of the community. How the Share family is working and which kind of outcomes we are realizing. The community has arranged itself with different working groups. Each working group is focused on some specific domain, because for each kind of initiative within the main initiative, we need some specialists, some skilled person, also some people who have time to spend in analyzing some specific domains and some specific issues. All groups are led by the Share-VDE Advisory Council, and I will present you briefly the work of this working group. The Advisory Council takes an active role in determining future use and vision for the Share-VDE initiative. So define the development priorities, for example, monitor, lead the work of the various groups, and this is very important, maintain communication among the Share family member institution and the web, the other communities. You can find in the slides, if you are interested, the latest outcome, that is a Share-VDE statement that was published in September 2021, and that was approved by the Share-VDE Advisory Council, and is a sort of a manifesto of the initiative. Briefly, other working groups. The Authority Identifier Management Service, as you know, also the authority service has become something different in the past, but also in the present. We work in terms of authority, thinking about records or access point. So, which is the correct access point to identify, for example, an agent. Now we are moving to an entity management system. So, also the concept of Authority Identifier Management Services is evolving, is very strongly evolving, and is very important to understand how the institution can continue to provide authoritative sources in a web context where things change continuously, and where the quality of data is a very important topic. So every group usually work defining some use cases, reasoning about the use cases and functional analysis, but the particular thing of this kind of working group is that the end of this is to realize something concrete. So the ability and the possibility to test concretely what something was thought, and if it works, if it's correct direction, and so on. And so the main scope of this work is, of course, authority services in the current reality where Mark is still living, but also and above all in the future when the authority control will become something related to entity management. Another working group is the cluster knowledge base editor, and this work is working on definition of use case to create an entity editor that makes possible to everyone that of course are authorized to do this, to manage the cluster knowledge base of entities that is produced with automatic processes, so of course, with a certain percentage of errors, because nothing could be perfect in a machine process, also above all working with a so large mass of data. One feature, just to give you an example of how the collaboration is important also in terms of editor, J.Cricket, this is the name of this editor, interacts with different sources and, for example, with Wikidata. Because if we are thinking about entities and not about record, we can imagine how the same entity can be represented in different contexts, and how it's important to link together or to use data that another community has already produced for this kind of entities. So the cross-domain is the main goal of this kind of work. The Sapientia Entity Identification Working Group, this is an important and very active group who work around the data model. Sapientia is the name of the cluster knowledge base of entities that the Share-VDE tenant has assigned to its cluster knowledge base, and this user group work to better represent the data model and the ability to meet other communities. So, for example, in this case, the interesting introduction of a new entity that is at the beginning of a hierarchy, that is the opus, to better meet the scope and the exigencies of IFLA community that is more focused on IFLA LRM model. And this is the final result where the Share-VDE opus was included as a type of the BIB framework, and this make possible the interaction and the collaboration with the European, no, not only European, with the IFLA community. This is the final result of the data model, and this is just a brief picture about how the opus is linked to work, to instance, and so on. The user experience user interface working group has worked to release the user interface. It's very important because linked open data are not only for machine, but are also for human consumer. So it's absolutely important to present something that is not just a triple, because the end user cannot understand this, but how to present something in practice that is based on entity. And this is an example of how the end user try to propose the complexity of data that are enriched with data coming from other sources in an easy way to understand a to find finally the resource. This is, for example, the example of William Shakespeare, with a text coming from Wikidata or Wikipedia, and with the other information coming from other source. And this is another example, so how to browse and to see all relationship between Leonardo da Vinci and original works about Leonardo da Vinci, original works by Leonardo da Vinci, and so on, just an example. This is another example of a work, Inferno of Dante Alighieri, and also in this case data enriched by external sources. And we have data enrichment from external sources, so the cataloger and the end user can select and check the same source in other project. And I go to, okay. And now I'm very interested to present this new working group that is the National Bibliography Working Group. I'm so interested also because some people here in the room are part of this group. And this is a working group who is analyzing how to create a tenant, so a sort of subdomain of the Share family, to put together national bibliographies. So this seems quite strange because a national bibliography represents the country publication, the country production, but this is the interesting, to have a unique site, a unique place where all people around the world can access and check national bibliographies of different countries, and how to put together this kind of authoritative data to improve your experience and to give and help both to catalogers, so to librarians, and to end users. So the working group now is in the phase of analyzing. This will be the next step, a user interface, because also in terms of presentation of data in national bibliographies, bibliography can need something different with respect to a library catalog. So how we can present this catalog of national bibliographies so that the scope of a national bibliography can be clearly expressed. The British Library is the early adopter of this tenant, and we are managing other institutions to put together. And each institution within this tenant can have its own skin, so the ability to present the national bibliographies all together in one catalog, but also with a specific skin to go directly, for example, to the British Library tenant. So about tenant, briefly, what does it mean, the Share family tenant infrastructure? The core principle of this Share family is, of course, the assumption that redundancy of data is complex to manage. We are working with more than 100 million of original data that you can imagine how many trips this produced. Linking entities is easier than duplicate data. Cooperate and maintain autonomy at the same time, so it's important to cooperate, but also maintaining its own autonomy to represent something, and homogeneity of data set and possible services to be shared, and so other principles that you can read here. So a larger initiative to put together and to realize the vision of a larger community that has also its own autonomy in doing something. These are some of tenants that are already in production. And briefly, the Share family tenant infrastructure, where each tenant has its own cluster knowledge base, but all of entities, but within this, a Share family index is a really index of URIs of entities to indicate where the same entities is present and how to create again a network to work on this. Each tenant has its own portal, each tenant has its own J.Cricket editor to manage their data, and they can cooperate. Briefly, because of course I have and these are some tenants and scheme portals, but you are free to check when you have time. So the goal is to maximize efforts and promote autonomy in the meantime of each tenant, and also to simplify something for this large community. For example, adding an on-off mechanism to show something in a tenant, in a portal, for example, in the National Bibliography tenant, but not in another portal. So you can add facets and filter, you can add some fields that you prefer, and you can have a different default configuration. This is the example of 2 different tenants, and this is an example of the British National Bibliography, so a specific scheme for this particular section of the catalog, or you can customize your services. This is an example of UPenn, University of Pennsylvania Circulation Services, something that is of interest of a specific library and not to of other libraries, so how to maintain this. And so again, a few minutes, a few seconds about the J.Cricket entity editor, because this is an important step, because we are moving from a publication level to a working level. So we need some editor that makes possible to work directly on these entities, to correct, to extend, and to increase the quality of them. So in the center of this environment, we have a cluster knowledge base, in this example, the Sapientia cluster knowledge base, but around the cluster knowledge base, we have a lot of different pieces, tools, activities and services and links with other communities. So the J.Cricket editor becomes a component part of this ecosystem, and where you are able to concretely work on entities and to do some actions. For example, if you discover that 2 original works were merged in an automatic process, all people that experience the clustering process know that this is a very easy, very usual error that can happen. With J.Cricket, you can split or merge something, so correct your errors. And above all, this is again an example of how an initiative can create a community, because authorized people can do something in the cluster knowledge base that is created by a larger community and find benefit of this. This is a features recap about J.Cricket, so with an authentication, authorization, auditing layer, a layer of APIs to track the cluster status, some features such as edit clusters, merge, split cluster, a dictionary API, so what are the available cluster type and that information, the data change synchronization across Share-VDE storages. This is very important because Share-VDE has a complex storages, both in RDF store, a search engine, a Postgres database. So how to manage the synchronization between these different contexts, and the entity event log, because consider that a lot of different people can work together on the same entity, so how to manage this, and of course the user notification so that the library who provided information to create an entity can be informed about something that changed. And to finish, to complete where we stand and look ahead, so we released, we have the shared family tenant architecture with these different tenants, a new release of the entity discovery portal that we call 2.0, supporting and enhance the cluster knowledge base. The instance as an entity, this is very important because we usually use the bibliographic record as a representation of an instance, but consider in a larger environment where a lot of different bibliographic records are referred to the same resource, so a real instance in terms of linked open data entity need to be created, a scheme portals supporting feature specific to the individual scheme, and an initial version of subject management, including various subject schemes, the National Library of Finland subject, for example, who supported this project, of course, subject coming from Library of Congress, and try to imagine how complex could be to clusterize something that is a concept and not a person or a work, where the same meaning can be represented with the different words, or where the same word can represent different meanings. So this is an important and crucial step. And major achievements since September 2021, have migrated the technological environment to AWS to guarantee, of course, a stronger architecture, the start of the development of J.Cricket entity editor, and some others activities that, of course, you can read here. And this is our goals for the next future. And important in this to release the J.Cricket as a backend within this year. So I think that is all. Yes. So thank you very much.